All right, welcome everybody. My name is Patrick. I'm one of two co-founders of Free Will. We'll talk more about that in a second. But I wanted to welcome everybody to our webinar 5 of this wild adventure together around going virtual in a pandemic and how to move events online at a moment where many of you are trying to figure that out. So I was looking at the RSVP list beforehand. We have a huge number of folks who've been with us for a few weeks. We had almost 1,000 people sign up here, and a lot of new folks as well. So if we've never met before, welcome and really glad you're here. Let me just start off. So I'm in the middle of New York City, as are a couple other folks on the phone. Things remain a little bit wild here. Last week we talked about how at 7 p.m. every night, there's this big cheer from balconies and apartment windows, some cars honking for the few cars on the road. And that's because 7 o'clock is the time that the hospitals change shifts. And so that's really exciting to see. What's also interesting is that it's escalating every day. And this is part of the ingenuity and the creativity of New Yorkers, but also most people around the country figuring this out. So it's getting louder, people are getting new instruments, people are blaring their bugles, some people are taking boom boxes, which I didn't know still existed, and blaring Frank Sinatra's New York, New York out the windows. So it's a really nice time. I try to go on walks daily, just get out of the house and try to be outside at 7 o'clock whenever. So really interesting things happening here. People are really coming together, and it's nice to see that being true all around the country. On today's agenda, there are a bunch of things we'll talk through. We'll go through introductions and feedback from last week, talk about some of the shifting behavior across the landscape. We'll share some ideas for virtual events and engagements, talk through tactical tips for making these easy and effective and powerful and fun. We'll share a lot of new ideas from around the community. Every week, these are increasing as the creativity, I think, is spurring on more and more people to be creative as well. And then we'll just talk through next steps. So we're booked for an hour. It will probably take a little bit less than that. And what we'll do is we'll wrap up, we'll answer some questions, we'll end it for anyone that wants to hop off, but then I'll stick around for a little bit to answer more questions and make sure that we get it through as many as possible. A quick note, this is new to us. So we have, my colleague Simone and I and some other folks worked pretty hard last week to get CFRE credit approved for these. And so this course is approved for 1 credit. Just make sure to make a note later. We're working on certifying previous webinars to get you credit for those as well. We'll send out an email if you attended those. It's also the case that we'll work on getting these going forward. The folks at CFRE are being really helpful here because normally you need a 30-day approval window. Because things are happening so quickly, this content is created usually a day or 2 days before right now, sometimes up to Tuesday morning at 11. So they've been really sweet about being supportive and being helpful and turning that around quickly. We have a guy named Jeff over there who's been just wonderful. And then there's just a question in the follow-up survey to certify your participation, so we can keep a list of everyone who needs CFRE credit. So totally new to us, but thanks for everyone who's put a lot of work in to make that possible. We know that a lot of you guys are working to advance your careers in this moment, and maybe you have a little bit of extra time to do some of that. So we want to be as helpful as possible. If you're coming anyway, let's make sure you get professional credit for it. So just many of you know this, some of you don't. My name is Patrick Schmitt. I'm one of 2 co-founders of Free Will, alongside my brilliant and wonderful co-founder, Jenny Xia Spradling. And we're really just lucky and thrilled to be part of a big team of about 55 folks, usually in New York City, and also 300 amazing nonprofit partners. And we're all learning together through this moment. What we do is we help organizations do planned and major giving and move it to digital, which is especially useful in this moment. And it's been a moment of real joy and learning. And we're a pretty quick moving startup. So we've actually grown from 5 people to 55 in the last 3 years or so, in the last 18 months or so. And so we're trying to use our nimbleness to help organizations that are maybe not used to moving as quickly, but are really stepping up in this moment. So we asked you how your week is going, and we do this every week, but here's one thing I really wanted to show everybody, which is really cool to see. So generally we'll ask people, how's your loneliness? How's your anxiety? Are you feeling eager or happy? And this is the trend of what it looks like week over week. And so actually you can see this anxiety is coming down pretty dramatically, from almost 63% when we first talked about it to a little bit over 40% now. Happiness is improving. People are eager and excited to a greater degree. And then loneliness is also really present. So if you're feeling that, it's normal, and certainly can identify with that sometimes as well. So really great to see. It also is interesting because we ran some roundtables this week, which we'll talk about later. And frankly, the same questions to those, and these are many people coming to us for the first time, were much higher. So my hope is that these sessions are helping with your anxiety a little bit and providing a little bit of a path forward together instead of just wondering what comes next. Quick feedback from last week. Overall, people found it super helpful. So five was given by about 68% of people, and then everyone else mostly rated a 4, which is really good. We also read every line of feedback in there so that we understand how to make these better. A couple of highlights. People found the information on how to fundraise for stock giving in a down market, and many people hadn't really had their heads around that before. This, by the way, is on our resources page if you want to watch a recording and didn't see it. Someone used some of the email templates we've been providing for free, and they said it was awesome, great response, which is really great to see. Anything we can do to make your lives a little bit better is wonderful. People are really excited about the roundtables, which we'll talk about later, but these are community gatherings in a specific area. So around faith, around health, around environment, et cetera, as a way to supplement the general webinars and really strengthen the community. And then lastly, someone said, thank you for smiling, which was really sweet. Thank you for that. Things we can do better. We're always looking for this. Someone said, we'd love to hear more advice about hosting a successful virtual event, which I'm glad you came to the right place. Continuing to use real life examples. Maybe a panel discussion to get a broader perspective. This is something we're looking at for future webinars. Although the roundtables end up being really good forums for this because we can dive deeper on your specific issue. And then also we get this feedback sometimes to slow it down just a smidge. So I'm working on it, but I do get excited easily. All right, let's talk about 2020. And we can think of this as both an extremely eventful year, but in fundraising, it will be lacking in events. Here's a couple of notes from you all. So 75% of you had an in-person event scheduled in the next 3 months. 24% did it, and a very small sliver said, hey, we don't actually do events. We asked people how they are changing their plans around these. So 29% said you're moving to virtual events, 15% said canceling, and 30% said postponing. Then there's a bunch of type-in answers, which you see, and so that's all the small chunks there. But really interesting, 30% about moving to virtual, canceling, and then this question of rescheduling or postponing that we're going to talk about now. So originally, and I think this might have been in week 2, we really walked through a recommendation on timelines for when to think about events and what might happen to future events. Now, this is our best guess, but we've gone really deep in the analysis of what's happening in other countries, what's looking at in say the world of sports or other large gatherings, what different recommendations are coming from health officials, and here's where we landed. And we've talked about this before, but 0 to 3 months not happening, as you can probably guess, cancel events or move to virtual. 3 to 6 months, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to have events. You want to make no purchases, you want to prepare and move to virtual, even in the 6 to 9 month. And this is revised from less than 50% to less than 30% as we look at more experiences. You want to treat the event as plan B and prepare a move to virtual, and then beyond 9 months, we don't make a projection to that date. The difference here, and we've talked about it a bit previously, is that if you think about a lot of the news is around reopening the economy and what timeline that is going to be on. And it's important to know that things like reopening manufacturing with young, healthy workers who can stay a distance apart will come dramatically before large crowds. And large crowds will come dramatically before large crowds of people that are potentially at risk. So unless you have a donor base that is primarily in their 20s and 30s, which is not true for most people, but it's in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's unlikely that you're going to be holding stewardship lunches with that cohort, or big galas where you're getting 400 people in a room and many of them are folks at 65, 70. And so I don't like delivering unhappy news, but we see that some organizations, I think, are being much too optimistic and prefer this sort of wait and see approach, which is not really a plan. And so we're going to talk about how to move these virtually. But the big tip that we have here, and this is hard to hear because people really have this idea of how great their event was last year and what it's going to look like, is do not postpone events. And what we think about this is that timing is highly uncertain. So what you don't want to be is in a position where in May, you've decided to move the gala to September, counting on that money in September, but then in September, you've got to move it to February again. And that is at risk of crippling an organization who's counting on a big fundraising surge at that moment. And multiple postponements will be really tricky for the organization. In particular, it delays what we call your next event. So if you're usually had an April fundraiser that you're now going to host in December or November, can you really go back and hold the following one 3 months later as we get back to normal in 2021? But if you can pull it off now, you'll be in a stronger position and have money in the door with enough space to be able to then reignite that fundraising in spring of the next year. It's also the case that we see a lot of forgiveness and support from donors. So if you do a virtual event now, you may still be able to hold an in-person party in September, October, November, if things open up and that's an avenue. Donors won't feel like, oh, we did this Zoom call from home with red wine and suits and ties, therefore I'm not going to come visit you in November. If that's an option, we assume they'll be thrilled. And so it's not an either or, but if you have momentum around a specific event, moving it to virtual is a much better strategy than just postponing it indefinitely. So how to think about virtual events. There's a couple of ways we'd suggest framing it as you begin to make decisions, and then we'll talk through some specific ideas of how those events, what those events can be, and how to make them great. So first, a big reminder, and because we read this on message boards, we talk to our partners, events themselves are not a goal. You only want to hold an event if it's going to have a specific outcome. You want to know what metric you're using for how we will know if this will be successful. Sometimes people view having 3 events as a metric. That's not a great use here. And either you want to think, we're going to raise X amount of money, we're going to have 50 people participate, and they're going to have a great experience, whatever it may be. You also want to be clear internally around what are fundraising events and what are stewardship events. It's not that you can't do some stewardship at fundraising events or vice versa, but really nailing the top goal of your event will be key here. And then when appropriate, stewardship events make a great avenue for one-to-one follow-up, especially in a digital setting where it's harder to pull someone aside for a one-on-one conversation. You may have a great event, and then you can follow up with those donors one-on-one to make an ask if you've seen something from the event that makes it seem like they're in a place that's ready for that. Another key tip, and this is, I think, a classic mistake that a lot of organizations make, not just in the nonprofit world, but in the broader landscape as well. When people think about how expensive an event is, don't forget the staff time that's included. For many people, that will be the biggest expense in any event, and almost certainly in a virtual setting. All right, now here's a little bit of math, and it's a little bit ambiguous, but stick with me here. This will really help as you think about how to structure events, what should we do, when should we do them, et cetera. So internally, we have what we call an event score if you're thinking about doing something. A webinar is an event. A gathering of partners and potential employees or other folks at our office, when we used to do that, would be an event as well. Here's how to think about it. So first, at a per person level, estimate the overall stewardship impact or fundraising potential per person. And this is a little bit ambiguous, or it can be just, feel like you're picking numbers out of thin air, but pick a baseline event. So something you've done in the past and say, okay, on average, that was a 5. Is this event more useful or less useful from a stewardship standpoint? Will people feel closer? Or we raised $50 per person, will we raise less or more? And that way you need a starting point that you'll have. Second, as you might want to do, is estimate the number of people who are likely to join. A super powerful event with 10 people is not as good as a super powerful event with 100 people if you can maintain that same level of impact or that same level of fundraising. And then lastly, estimate the amount of person hours to pull this off. And you may want to add in if there's a big cash outlay, although in most virtual events, one of the big benefits is that these are pretty cheap to do. So 10 people for 10 hours each would equal 100 person hours. A couple more tips here. So the event score would be how much per person impact or per person fundraising times the number of people that you expect to join divided by the estimated staff hours. And that's your event score. But you might say, this feels so arbitrary. We're just assigning these numbers, we're guessing. We don't know. We don't know how much time it's going to take. We don't know how many people are going to join until we do it. 100% correct. But actually thinking about these 3 metrics and how to increase each of them or weighing them against each other will make you much better at decision making instead of just saying, hey, should we have a trivia night or a town hall? Well, you can break it down to how impactful is it for one person, how many people might attend, how much it's going to take, and then start weighing those against each other. So I hope that's clear. I'm sure we're going to get some questions about that at the end. A quick note, by the way, as some folks are popping in questions, if you have questions, there's a Q&A function, and that way we'll make sure to get to all of those at the end. With almost 1,000 people here, the chat will get overrun pretty quickly, and it'll be hard for us to piece out the questions there. So a couple more tips. Event score is a comparative measure. You can just use it against each other. It's not a perfect objective. And then 2, you might want to think about, are we doing events at all? And the way we can make that decision is, hey, is all the work going to this event more effective than all the same people using the same time to call donors? And if it isn't, that's okay. Just call donors and you'll have an incredible impact. Don't feel like you have to put on events just because you did so in the past. All right, no more math. Let's talk through some fun fundraising ideas. So first one, I shared a little bit about this last week. The idea of a talent show. My colleague Jack came up with this. This is his fun video announcement. It's a really cool idea because it leverages the community and gives them a way to get involved when most of us are stuck at home. Here's a couple of ways to think about it. So overall, this probably takes longer to plan than many because you need to line up the people that will perform. You can also call it a no talent show, meaning that you don't want to overly weight how good people have to be. And the attendance on something like this is unlimited. So as you calibrate the different events, figure out how many people could come if you do this. If you're a large organization, nothing's stopping you from emailing this out to 1 million people and having 2,000 or 3,000 sign up to join. So you want to announce the event with amateur video. Why amateur and not super professional? 1, it's easier to do, and most of you don't have great film equipment at your homes. But 2, it sets the expectation of who can participate. If you only are doing an extraordinarily well-produced video, people are going to think I have to have gone to Juilliard to show up. You request submissions through an easy survey and have an RSVP sign up. These are pretty easy. You probably want to have 8 to 12 acts, all of them 4 minutes or less, and you really want to make sure that that hook is ready. You don't want someone to go on for 15 minutes. And between acts, you can include updates and appeals. You can thank donors in real time as gifts or pledges come in, and just make this a really interactive experience. It's a really cool idea. Most colleges, high schools, any organization with more than a couple of thousand supporters on their email list will likely have enough acts to make this work. It's a super fun experience, and it really gives people a chance to step up instead of purely consume content. Couple of other tips. As the event nears, you want to release videos of people rehearsing or video updates to build excitement. These can also be very quick and dirty on your phone, 60 seconds or less, really simple. You just host those on YouTube, you put a link in the email, and we've seen this to be really great. You also want to do a tech walkthrough the day before with performers and make sure that everybody knows that how to make this happen and that the tech set is set up well so that the audio works, etc. Okay, trivia night. This is more of a fun stewardship event, but we've seen a lot of organizations do it. We've also seen a lot of people planning them with their friends, which is an insight that this is emergent behavior that means people are really interested in doing it. It's a great way to have a group setting. Again, planning time is a week, attendance is unlimited. We're thinking of this originally as a stewardship event, but it may be a way to fundraise as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. So basic premise here, create 4 rounds of 10 questions, 2 rounds that are relevant to your organization or your organization's mission, and 2 that are general knowledge. Why do both? Well, you want to make sure it's tied to your organization, but also you want to make it accessible for someone who's not an expert there. You just have participants use pencil and paper and score themselves, submit their total via chat after each round. You don't need to have an extensive scoring system here. people can operate on integrity. There's no real cash prizes anyway, so there's not a lot of incentive for people to cheat. Between rounds, similar to the talent show, you can share updates on your work, thank donors, including Legacy Society supporters. This is a great way to highlight the existence of a Legacy Society to people who might not normally hear about it. And then you also want to make sure to test questions on your friends or coworkers first. Almost certainly that if you create 40 questions, one of them will be wrong, or one of them will be way too hard, or multiple, and you can do a quick run through, and that will help you really refine the questions before you. If you want to make this a fundraising event, you can charge folks $25 to participate, or make it a pay what you can, and then optional, if you are a hospital or a college that can do this well, you can say the winner gets to direct the money to a fund of his or her choosing. So another cool way to keep it interesting, but you can also just keep it to your general fund. All right, we really like this. So event 3 is a museum tour, a school tour, a nature walk, etc. And what this is a guided experience. You can plan it in 1 to 2 weeks. You can have as many folks as you want to join. And what you want to do is find a tour guide, a park ranger, a principal, someone who knows the space well and can highlight interesting parts of conversation. You'll use images to walk through 4 to 10 places or pieces or animals. If you're a land trust, you can highlight, this interesting plant and zoom in on a couple of areas that might be interesting that most people would miss when they go to the land trust. If you're a college, you might use this to show some of the more newer buildings, some of the behind the scenes work in the lab, etc. There's a pointer feature on Zoom and meetings that you can use to highlight certain aspects. Circle the left ear of the woman in American Gothic that you see to the right, or other things like that that just make it feel like more of an interactive experience. We really like using the polling feature on Zoom as intermittent quizzes for interactivity. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like, let's launch this poll. So what you should see now is what a poll looks like. And pretending that we're on a museum tour, the question is, in the famous painting American Gothic, whom did Grant Wood use as a model for the male figure? I can see, by the way, on my screen that the poll's been running for 20 seconds now. We'll let it run for another 10 seconds. We've got 170 answers. In case you are wondering, we'll close it now and we'll share results. So 37% said himself, 24% said his father, 8% said his dog walker, 13% said his brother, and 18% got the correct answer, which was his dentist. Interestingly, his sister is the female model because his mother wasn't able to stand up for long enough. So that's why you have someone who's noticeably younger as the wife in American Gothic. Interesting fact. But having people participate makes it much more interesting. And you can do this whatever type of organization you're doing. Close the poll. And then conclude with updates on how people can get more involved. Usually what you want to do here is pair somebody who is not the groundskeeper, the principal, or someone else. So you have this expert voice, and then separately you have an organizational voice on how someone can get more involved. And that may include donations, but it also may include other avenues for deepening stewardship. These are also a great moment for people that are particularly well engaged to set up with a separate phone call where you can explore different ways to get them more involved from a fundraising perspective. All right, event 4, these will be really powerful from a fundraising standpoint. Small group dinners, drinks, desserts, coffee, almost always over Zoom or similar. This will take 1 to 3 weeks. You can probably have 5 to 15 people here, but no more. The idea here is that you have an intimate setting that matches the type of high donor dinner that you might have with a VIP. You really want to host these by 2 people, a VIP and a gift officer. You may even want to have a third person on hand just to handle logistics. But you can be creative about VIPs. So it doesn't have to be your executive director. It could be a health professional, an operations expert, etc. Someone who's just helping go deep into the organization, which provides a clear avenue for how people can help. In something like this, if you have a meeting of more than a few people or a conversation, you really want to moderate the conversation. And this is the difference between well-run events like this and poorly run. And what you mean is, we mean to say, just say, great, Sarah, what do you think about that? Or Charles, do you have any questions? And calling out people specifically, because in the absence of body language cues, it's very difficult to know who is going to talk when. Whereas in a roundtable dinner, it's pretty obvious when someone's getting ready to speak. And so that will help a conversation flow very well. And either that can be done by the VIP or a gift officer moderating the conversation. These are also really great avenues for a follow-up for high potential prospects who attended larger events. So if you have someone come to a trivia night or a town hall meeting and they asked a good question, and from your records, you know they might be a high potential donor, taking that next step, because there's someone who's already shown an interest in virtual events, to then invite them to a meeting with the dean allows you to open up potentially a very strong conversation. You may be able to do even more prospecting at this moment than other times, because this is a series of low asks that are very easily attended for someone who's not in the immediate vicinity of your organization. And then another tip, sometimes people are doing dinner. We would actually recommend cocktails or coffee or desserts. They're better, they're quieter than dinner. Many people are uncomfortable eating on camera. Many people also are just super loud when they're using their forks and knives, and the microphone will pick up those sharp sounds. If you've heard anybody, if you've been on a phone call recently, someone's doing dishes, you can hear that little clanking, and it's not actually very loud to them, but it magnifies on the microphone. And then this is another interesting point, because people are used to having 2 and 3 hour events like this. Do this for an hour. There's a couple of benefits. One is people just get a little bit restless after an hour. People are less comfortable getting up and leaving to go to the bathroom when they're on a video call. It's also the case that this allows for multiple events in the same day or evening. So if you have a dean and a gift officer, you could theoretically run 3 of these a night and actually have a lot of great conversations in a way you could never do in a real life setting, and suddenly be much more effective. I would recommend that if you're doing 3 days a night, you sort of keep yourself to coffee or tea and not do new cocktails with every hour, but up to you, and you can be an adult. My other really fun tip here is that you should use dress code to add heft or a sense of specialness about this event. So everyone has all their clothes. Most people have been living in sweatpants and jeans and whatever they may have. And a chance to dress up will make it feel special without any additional cost or effort on your part. Just make a note there in the invitation that you're sending out. All right. Number 5 is a fun run, a hike, a pet walk. These are happening. People are really excited to get outside, to do things in this quote unquote apart but together. These will take a little bit longer to plan, about 3 to 6 weeks. And normally that's because they involve some level of peer-to-peer fundraising, but you can also have unlimited attendance here. So you want to decide whether you want this to be a simultaneous event, meaning we're all doing this at 9 o'clock on Sunday, or over a week, a month, a day, etc. These are ideal for peer-to-peer fundraising. We know One Cause is a decent platform here. We don't officially recommend anything. Feel free to check that out, or some other options. But this sort of hike or run or something else that people are doing, we also see people spending a lot more time on social media right now. So peer-to-peer fundraising should be more effective than it's been in the past. And you want to think something of challenging or funky. And we'll get to a couple of examples here, but a 5K walk, even if you're going to do that, let's think about ways to make it more interesting and more photographable and more shareable as compared to a simple walk around the park. So a couple of examples that we really love. There's an organization called Hope for Haiti, which does great relief work for Haiti, as you might have guessed. And they're doing something called Hike for Haiti. And this is over the course of an entire month. So this is one of those asynchronous events where you can register and raise money. Here are a couple of the instructions to participate. You register today, and then they're asking you to climb 200 flights of stairs, which is the equivalent of a mountain that many people in Haiti have to climb for supplies on a regular basis. And so this is inspired, but you're going to make the most of it. So if you don't have access to stairs, it says 22,000 steps, approximately 10.5 miles. You can climb in your house, on a step machine, outside, etc. So a lot of creative ways that make it accessible, but it's still challenging. and then share your results on social media, tag Hope for Haiti, you can win prizes, we'll share your pictures. And as the month goes on, this content starts to come in and builds more and more support. So people will share it, and there's still 3 weeks to go. Other people will be able to sign up. And not only are you generating more funds, you're getting new donors in this really cool cause. We also love what the Tampa Bay SPCA is doing. So you can see they've already more than halfway their $90,000 fundraising goal for their pet walk, which moved from in-person to virtual. This is being started at a specific time. Another thing they're doing really well, which we'd encourage folks, is making use of Facebook fundraisers. And so this is Carolyn Wisniewski's fundraiser for Pet Walk. She's got a goal, and these become more visible as more people are on social media. The other thing they're doing is a pet costume contest. And this is one of those things that we think of as low cost but funky, and makes it much more memorable because people are otherwise just walking their pets every day. And this creates a really cool opportunity to make it more special, more shareable, and really have that sink in as the Tampa Bay SPCA is part of their family, part of their lives, because this extra special memory has come there. Another cool idea, and this is from Trellis Supportive Care, which is actually a hospice. They did a 5K and a family picnic. That obviously got axed. So they're still doing the 5K, people are still raising money. And then there's a local fried chicken restaurant, which was gonna help sponsor the picnic, that is donating 10% of its proceeds to the Trellis Supportive Care organization. And why is this cool? Because it's people that are supporting local restaurants that might be at risk, while also by marketing for them, but also generating some of those funds back to it. So it feels like this cool shared experience. Thank you to the Trellis folks for sharing that through an earlier survey. A couple other tips. So if you want to check out the Hike for Haiti or the Pet Walk, just Google it. We'll also send out links in a follow-up. Hike for Haiti has a really excellent participant guide that you can model yours own after if you're doing something like this. And we'll send these links around afterwards with the recording, as I mentioned. Okay, 2 more events. Town hall events, these have been really well received at a lot of organizations. So this might take 1 to 2 weeks to plan. Your attendance is unlimited. What you really want here is experts in the field who can talk about something interesting that likely affects the lives of folks in your community. So executive directors of nonprofits, deans of schools, health professionals, if you're a health organization, is really key here, and people have so many questions, they love to engage. Other experts, economists, if you're at a college, just people who can ask questions that have been on their mind and engage with other people. These are great experiences. They can also end with appeals for help. Couple tips to make these great. You want to solicit questions beforehand, in addition during the meeting. Otherwise, you might get stuck with no questions coming in, and then you just have not much of a town hall event. So make sure you've got about anywhere from 6 to a dozen questions pre-seeded, and you can work those in with questions from the audience in real time based on how much need there is. And then obviously you want to include a how to help section, or even plan a question. So if you've got a great volunteer, they might say, hey, my question is, seems like everything's going really well, or you're doing great work. What can we in the audience do? And then you can outline a couple of ways to help. We really love the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy. And you can see that on Earth Day, they're actually doing 2 of these, one at 11, one at 4, with some experiences in between. So people are celebrating Earth Day. There's story time for folks with young children. There's a nature in your neighborhood activity, which I don't know what it is. And then Q&A with a local naturalist to help share some information as well. And then lastly, let's talk about online galas. So this could be an entire webinar, and we're not going to go in great depth to it, but we're going to tell you where to find all the best information. So there's an organization called the Upaya Social Ventures. This organization is based in Seattle, which, as many of you remember, was one of the first places to get hit with COVID-19. They had only a week to move their gala online, and they outperformed their fundraising goals by about 30%. Because of that, they've developed an extraordinary guide to creating virtual galas. Go check that out. You can just Google virtual reality making an online gala. We will also send this out to you afterwards, but in case you're watching the video later, It's really excellent, and they've done a great job documenting a bunch of the best practices. And so just go there, and if you're doing a gala, use it as a checklist of things to do. Really well done, really thoughtful. They also have their own Q&A that's posted, and will walk you through step by step the mistakes that they made, as well as most of the things that they did well. So across events, let's talk about how to make these go really well. And by well, we mean intuitive for individuals joining, fun, and powerful. Right? So you're going to ask yourself, where do I score on each of these levels? From an intuitive standpoint, invite you to come by email instead of direct mail. You can still do your other direct mail. That's safe and normal and effective, but you want this to be easily accessible, and usually that URL is really key. On the RSVP, ask if participants expect to need any help joining. And so you want to list the people who might be challenged by figuring out how to use Zoom for the first time. You always want to include a phone number for dial-in. It's the case that some people will struggle to get their audio working and can participate that way. And then on the day of the event, email extremely explicit instructions, things that might seem painfully obvious to you. You may want to include screenshots as necessary, but saying you will click here, and then you will see this square and click, arrow down to this button. And that will be really helpful for people who may not have experienced something like this previously. Although it is worth noting that most people, including many older donors and supporters, are getting very good at this quickly out of necessity. So don't overly layer your own expectations. More things on making it intuitive. We do recommend Zoom. We don't have a relationship with them, but obviously we're using it now. It's the most familiar to the most people and doesn't require a download, which is a really good use for this case. You also want to have volunteers on hand, and this can be other staff members or whomever, for 30 minutes before the call and even 15 minutes to call people who need help and walk them through joining. If you're on the telephone with people, many people will be able to do it quite easily, and some of us have experienced something like that already. All right, let's talk about making them fun. So leading up to the event, you really want to use video messages to get people used to interacting through screens and build familiarity with the main speaker, so that when someone's coming on board or coming to join the event, they've seen this person 3 or 4 times, even if they've never interacted with that person previously. These videos, as a reminder, will be super easy and quick. They can be on your phone. They can be less than 2 minutes. Don't feel like you've got to be great. Just say hi, share something interesting, talk about how excited you are, and end the video. Pretty easy. Should be less than 10 minutes of work. You also want to maximize interactivity in all cases whenever you can, through polls, responses in chat. Start with one of the things we do here, which is where are you joining, and something that brings you joy this week, to get people in a sharing sentiment and to just feel happier. It's a great start to these, for me at least, to read through where people are coming from, and also something that made them happy. And we get that feedback all the time. That's true for other folks. A couple other things. The audience will always be about 80% of the energy that you come with. So if you're presenting, remember that even if you're in a house by yourself, you need to make sure that you're high energy, and that will keep the audience engaged. It's even harder on virtual than it is in person, but this rule is always true. And then include stories about what's bringing you and your staff joy. People want to know that you're a human and not necessarily that you're entirely in your professional context. All right, let's talk about what makes them powerful and really effective. So from a powerful standpoint, you want to have a moderator who is the host and takes care of all the logistics, so the main speakers are fully focused on messaging. This is really key. Some of you have been on meetings where someone's trying to run the meeting and then says, oh, but can you mute? Oh, log in this way, etc. And it's a mess. And it's so distracting to everybody. And so you want to have someone who's doing that in the background while the leader is focused on messaging and making it as fun and powerful as possible. For events with fewer than 100 people, use the meeting setting. For more, use webinar. The big benefit of the meeting setting is that you can see other people on video, and it's much more interactive and engaging than webinar, where in this instance, you can only see me because we have so many people on the call. And then there's settings that you can do this in the first. Just remember to make sure that everyone is muted unless you're explicitly unmuting people. Otherwise, you're going to have a disaster anytime you have more than 6 or 7 people. A couple other things, and these are really key and things that we're not seeing people do, but the smartest organizations are taking advantage of, and we really want to hammer this point home. So for fundraising events, make sure you have options for giving via donor advised funds, stocks, and QCDs. One of the interesting things here is that virtual events can be fully paid for by QCDs or donor advised funds, whereas many others cannot because you're receiving some benefit. So for most cases, the value of going to trivia night will be zero, and you can pay entirely in a donor advised fund. These gifts will be significantly larger than the same type of gift in cash. I hope that makes sense. But we talked about this a little bit last week. When people are thinking about their wealth bucket compared to their income bucket, they'll give much larger gifts. And so donor advised funds, stocks, qualified charitable distributions, other options fall into this category. And you want to make sure that as much as possible, you're taking gifts in this area and not by cash. For small donor events, it's a really fun tactic to say, this is free for Legacy Society members, and then a link to learn more about the Legacy Society. Most people will not know what it is or haven't really considered it, but the idea that these people have a special privilege makes it cool and makes the event seem a little bit more interesting. And then last thing, you always want to send a follow-up survey. And you'll see that we do this at the end of every webinar. It's because we're not very good at running webinars, and we get better every week based on the feedback that you're getting. Your organization is probably bad at running virtual events, just like every nonprofit in the country. That is fine. That's not been what you've spent years getting good at. But now you want to learn what's working, what isn't, and you'll be surprised by the responses quite frequently, as we are. These surveys also give people the option to raise their hands for giving. You want to ask about whether they want information about donor advised funds, IRA gifts, etc., or things like virtual volunteering. I'm sure that many people would be thrilled to help write trivia questions the next time, or to recruit a few people to a small group drinks with the dean. And so there's a lot of people who want to do something and they feel bottled up, and there's a lot of excess energy that is latent right now in the country and among your supporter base. And so finding avenues to use that will be really powerful. Okay, we're close to wrapping up. There are a couple of ideas that are coming from the community that we really wanted to share. First things, we shared this last week, but there were some questions in the follow-up survey. So Make-A-Wish, we love this, is adding a $300 giving option on all of our donation pages. Why is that the right idea? It's because there's a new carve-out for a $300 deduction for everybody in America, whether or not you're itemizing deductions. And previously, in 2019, only 9% of Americans itemized deductions, which meant they were getting no tax benefit for many charitable gifts. Now, this $300 is a big option. So make sure that that is an option on all of your donation pages. Thank you again to Make-A-Wish for pioneering that. The Manhattan School of Music is emailing student-produced content, which keeps people really connected to the supporters. Alfred University circulated a recording of Campus Bells, which is a calming and supportive way to steward donors and supporters. We love this. MDA has what they call MDA ambassadors. For those of you who don't know, it's the Muscular Dystrophy Association that's working on a cure for muscular dystrophy. And so they've got kids who have it and other folks as well. This ambassador records a joke a day. In case you're wondering, this joke was, I'm going to butcher this, but how can you identify a dogwood tree? And the answer is by its bark. So I watched that twice, and it was quite fun and brings people closer to MDA. Wounded Warriors is doing virtual volunteer kits with supplies and instructions on how to make thank you cards for Wounded Warriors, which is really cool as people are taking to arts and crafts at home. Coloring pages for children, video messaging from the CEO. These are great ideas. Open Heart Kitchen is doing virtual food drives through our website, meaning there's a lot of news coverage right now around the shortage of food pantries, but many people can't go out and do it. So they're doing virtual food drives, which are effectively donations, as a way to help drive more support at a crucial time. So thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. And then virtual lunches with the president from the Barrington Stage Company, which is similar to what we described in one of the events. Here's an idea that we really like as well from Free Will. So for not very much money, you can buy picture puzzles and mail them to your major donors or your board members. So we've seen other people do quarantine baskets. This is a really cool idea. What you see on the right is actually a puzzle that the Free Will team got my co-founder Jenny and her husband for their wedding. So it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. You probably want to do about 500 pieces unless you know someone's a puzzle aficionado, but it's a really cool idea. It's a great way to have people feel closer to the organization. It's a very, very thoughtful gift that just doesn't cost a lot of money as you're thinking about stewarding major donors or your board members or even staff who are stuck at home. So really cool idea. Other ones, the folks at Fred Hutch are doing extra birthday cards and birthday calls. Many of you have experienced or seen how different birthdays are right now. And this is a really thoughtful way that will be really memorable. So if you do have donor birthdays, have to give them a call, even for a few minutes. It's really thoughtful because people are experiencing this in a different way than they normally would. The Humane Society of Silicon Valley is participating in Giving Tuesday Now, which is new for May and coincides with their board match, but with a separate match for that one Tuesday. So Giving Tuesday Now is going to be a huge opportunity. Both those of you who've gotten pushback from your boards or from your EDs about not fundraising, this is a really good time to force the issue. It's also a really good moment where you've sort of gotten external permission to ask for funds and give people a way to participate. One thing we'll do next week is actually the entire webinar is focused on making the most of Giving Tuesday Now for planned and major giving. So there's a lot of cool opportunities here to educate people on new ways to give under the Giving Tuesday Now banner. So thank you to everyone who submitted ideas. There are a bunch of other ideas that we didn't put in here because there are just so many, but we'll keep sharing those week over week. Community roundtables have been awesome. So we held, I think, 6 or 7 last week, and there are a bunch more coming. These are all gatherings of people from specific areas. Higher ed, we already held one. It was great. And so we're hosting those every Wednesday, every 2 Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. There's another one for K through 12 on April 20th. There's another one for health on April 23rd. For arts and culture, we're scheduling that, but just make a note in the survey and we'll add to the list when that's ready. And the same thing with the environment. So those are being scheduled for soon, but we don't have finalized dates yet based on some panelists and other things. You can RSVP in the survey. You can also check out the recordings of previous roundtables on our resources page if you want to get examples and ideas for your specific area. Those were all just brilliant, and we really benefited from having communities together, solving problems together. Okay, we're wrapping up. So big thing here is please fill out the survey in the Zoom chat for feedback, for RSVPs to community events, and for CFRE credit. So just make a note to do that, please. It should take you 2 minutes or less, but it's the thing that we base all of the future conversations on, so we can make sure that we're being excellent here and being as helpful as possible. Next week's webinar, as I mentioned, same time, same place, making the most of Giving Tuesday Now, with a particular lens on planned giving and on major giving. So this is actually an incredible moment to introduce people to new avenues of giving, which will really level them up from a donor perspective. And then third, if you have creative ideas that you want to share or you need anything at all, just email me. The team is here for you. We just had a ton of support from our team who are really stepping up for other partners, and also partners who are stepping up for each other. So love that as well. And we can open the floor for questions. As a reminder, put questions in the Q&A chat. Looks like we have quite a few already, and we'll go through those. Okay, question 1 is, what recommendation do you have for virtual events with an audience who is older and not as tech savvy? Great question. We shared a little bit about this. 1, don't underestimate how tech savvy they are, because many of them have gotten much better in the last 3 weeks. 2, this is an area where you might want to call someone in advance of an event and walk them through a practice round, and they will be incredibly grateful because this allows them to connect with their family and other folks as well. What are the best strategies for bequest messaging, and across what channels while we work from home? Email seems to be the go-to, but how can we expand efforts? This is a good question as well. There's actually a bunch of email templates on our resources page, because bequest messaging is actually incredibly powerful now. We're seeing plan giving and estate planning just through the roof. I've shared this with you previously, but April looks like it's going to be 5 or 6 times higher than last April in terms of giving. Just enormous surge in people doing their estate planning. And so what we call is the triple option, which means you have 3 things that people can do, including plan giving. And that can be really effective, because you don't want to lead with plan giving in this moment, but if you include it, you'll see incredible results. It's also the case, as I mentioned previously, that social media is a big avenue. Social media is a good avenue where you can tease information. So you'd say, great, here are 3 interesting ways that people are stepping up during COVID. And then that lands on a page that has those 3 options as well. So that can be a really cool alternative. One fun trick on social media is, ask people for suggestions on other ways to help so that you build a list of comments, and that actually will increase the reach of the message. This is a really important question here. So someone asks, I'm wondering what is reasonable to expect of myself. I'm dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety, which is natural, and is impacting my workflow at home. How much should I let myself off the hook? How much should I demand of myself? Parentheses, I love free will yoga, by the way. Thanks. So people, by the way, are invited to yoga with our team on Tuesdays and Fridays, and it's actually a great time to just chill and stretch your body a little bit. Mental health is incredibly important here, and I think some people are doing marvelously in quarantine, and some people are really struggling. It's distracting to be at home, there's lack of human connection, and it's hard. I would suggest that you be as easy on yourself as you need to be, knowing that the idea that you'll be quite as productive now as you were beforehand is probably false. And I would also think about how to take note of the moments either in work or outside of work that bring you joy, and just deliver more of those. So more walks outside, more conversations with old friends. Also give yourself full permission to be nervous. So we'll keep talking about that, but it is okay if you're not your most productive self during a worldwide pandemic. Question 4, I had scheduled a donor satisfaction survey, but I've held off on that. What is your advice? I would say do it. You may want to include a question on how folks are reacting or other things that might be helpful in structuring your messaging going forward. Question 5, do you have ideas for staying productive once outreach to assigned prospects is completed and other marketing has been done? So 2 things. 1, I would say, yes, keep calling donors. But 2, take a look at your systems and tools. And this is a moment where if you have a little bit of extra time because you're not commuting, you're not traveling to go see donors, figure out what are the tools and resources you'll need to be in place for the next few years. And you can do that now so that you come sort of screaming out at the turn and really productive here. Some people have much, much more time because they're not doing travel, which is a huge component if you're mainly an in-person fundraiser. A lot of people are asking about the slides and the replay, so we will send those around. Usually it takes us about 2 hours to turn the video around. So we'll have that, and we'll have links to all of the cool events that we shared from Hope for Haiti and Tampa Bay SPCA, et cetera. Are time estimates for events starting from now or March? That is a great question. So that was really from March, and maybe I should have been more clear on what the next 9 months look like. But we based that on a ton of external research, and we just think the really important message here is let's not count on fall events happening, and let's be prepared for alternatives. And your fundraising cannot be dependent on having an in-person event in fall. And so planning now is really key. What events are best designed to move virtual versus canceled? We would suggest that as much as possible, you want to move events to virtual and make the most of it. Donors will have low expectations and you can exceed them, but things that are just canceled will never come back. And so if you can salvage some of this and make it fun and enjoy yourselves, it's really key. And actually, our sense is that for most organizations, those that make that commitment figure out how to make it work and are surprised at how well it goes. So just because you don't know exactly what it's going to look like now doesn't mean you won't be able to pull it off extremely well. Do you think it's better to plan several smaller virtual events or one big virtual event to replace an annual gala that we canceled? This is a great question. If it is primarily a fundraising event, which it should be, we would suggest that you do a big virtual event that is something about celebrating and highlighting the mission, but also that you supplement it with small group dinners where you're able to get concrete asks. One of the great pieces of advice in the gala guide that we suggested is that you have quote unquote table captains or volunteers who, again, many will have extra time now, volunteer to really round up gifts from the 6 or 7 people that they'd be closest with. And they are co-hosting a dinner with your dean or your ED with those 6 or 7 major donors. So you're continually to pull in funds that way. Someone says, we've never done events. We were planning on our first in 2020. It looks like that's not going to happen. Should we wait until 2021 or have a virtual event as our first in 2020? I would say go for it. virtual events can be surprisingly easy to pull off. It's a great learning for your organization, and you do want to get smart about this as quickly as possible, knowing that all of us are pretty mediocre at the moment. You don't really have much to lose, and you'll learn everything you can from it, and it will probably inform future virtual events. It is also possible that even in 2021, in-person events are not as successful because people are still feeling a little bit sheepish about being in large groups. We don't know exactly when a vaccine will come out. So if you can build the skill of holding virtual events, 100% do it right now. Many people asked about elderly donors and sharing Zoom. There's a great suggestion in the chat, actually, which is if you have a how-to guide for older folks, send that to them. It can even be in mail, in a handwritten note, because many people are using Zoom as their portal to the world. And if your older donors can't figure that out, it is much lonelier. And you'll do an incredible service for them, both for your events, but also for their families. Do you have a nice worksheet that pulls together the event math? We'd love to use it to compare ideas and options. We don't, but that's a great idea. And it's something we can pull together over the next week and share it on our resources page. We had a question of how does the solicitation happen in the talent show scenario? What prompts the donation aspect? So this can be ticketed, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it. It can also be a pay what you can, or you can explicitly have donation pages ready that go into the chat in between acts. So those are a few options there. Okay, it is almost 1 o'clock. So let's officially pause there. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll stick around for about 5 more minutes answering a few more questions because we're not going to get to the bottom of these, but I do want to respect everybody's time. So thank you again for coming and hope to see you next week. How do you recommend sharing video intros via email? What would you recommend? YouTube, etc. So the best thing here and the easiest thing is take a video, upload it to YouTube, put a link in the email. The next level is that you take a screenshot of that video and include it as a picture in the email to make it seem more real, but that will still open in YouTube. This whole process will take you 10 minutes. It's really easy, and it's hard to screw up from the recipient standpoint. Many email clients can't play video in an email, and so don't go overboard there. Can you explain why donor advised fund stocks and QCDs can pay for virtual events but not other events? Does that apply to something like an online gala as well for a trivia event? Don't you still have something they're getting a benefit for that disqualifies at least part of it as a donation? So just to take a step back, for folks who are, say, giving to a college, if that college is providing football tickets or basketball tickets or something of value, you cannot use a donor advised fund for the entire gift because that is money that's already been given a tax deduction, and so you can't use it for things of value. So in a typical gala, you theoretically can't use a donor advised fund gift to include paying for the dinner because that is something that you are receiving. Now, I'm not a tax lawyer, but it seems to me very credible that in a virtual event that has no material changing hands, that will not be of value, and therefore you can give with a donor advised fund, stock, etc. You really, really, really want to get donors into the habit of doing this because they will be making larger gifts going forward once they get used to it. And most are surprised to learn how easy it is, but they're terrified of starting. We had a question around explain the $300 donation again. So in the recently passed CARES Act, a stipulation was made that every American has what's called an above the line deduction, meaning regardless of whether or not they're itemizing deductions, they can deduct $300 from their income for a charitable gift up to that size. I'll note that there's currently some discussion around whether that applies for married couples and it's $600 or it's per filing. And so we'll have to get back to you on that. But there's been some debate around what that looks like. All right, let's close with this question. So, well, 2 more questions. Any ideas for getting new legacy donors on Giving Tuesday? So yes, and we will be providing some email templates and phone scripts over the course of the next week. and then also come back to our session next Tuesday. The big thing here is that donors are actually always looking for multiple ways to give on Giving Tuesday. And this comes from our conversations with the folks leading Giving Tuesday. And by providing legacy giving as an additional option, you'll actually get much deeper engagement. And most of these messages are being going out to your entire donor base. And so it's a way to be much broader with planned giving than you normally would, because it's layered in a couple of options. So we think that Giving Tuesday is going to be one of the largest days for planned giving in 2020. And smart organizations are going to be making the most of it. And then someone asked, why are Patrick's books color coordinated? It's because originally I had some travel books that were all blue. They looked great. We evolved into this. It was also the case that not that many people come to my small apartment in New York, and now thousands of people have seen it thanks to this pandemic. So we're all making adjustments, and I'm glad that you could see it. Let's wrap up there. A huge thank you again to everyone who joined, but specifically to all those folks who are sharing their creativity and ideas. Love to see your ideas coming forward, and looking forward to seeing you next Tuesday.